everyone, Scott Player Pop Cult Fan here, and in this video, I kind of want to do a bit of a franchise video game discussion of a certain video game that I've mentioned a couple times in some of my previous videos, which is The Last of Us. Okay, granted, I haven't played either of the two games because there's two games. There's the original game that came out in 2013, then there was a remastered version of The Last of Us that was released for the PlayStation 4 in 2014. Then there was some DLC that was released for the first Last of Us game, kind of exploring more of Ellie's character a little bit for that first game. And then obviously last year was the second game that came out, The Last of Us Part 2. Now, both of these games, I've mentioned these games in some of my other videos, and how there are certain aspects of both of these games that I've seen in movies, and I've mentioned that. And granted, I've never played these games. I don't have a PlayStation. I've never owned a PlayStation. I mainly just play Nintendo games, but I just feel I really want to talk about The Last of Us because I've watched several playthroughs or walkthroughs on YouTube of the first game and the second game, and it's something that you get so invested in because of the emotional story going on between Joel and Ellie in the first game, and also in the flashbacks of The Last of Us Part 2, the second game, and how some things are changed in the second game, you know, with the Abby character and what happens at the beginning of the game. Divided a lot of Last of Us fans because of what happened at the very beginning of the second game, and I've seen both games play. I haven't played them, but I've seen them. I've seen how the story goes for both games, and they just feel very satisfying in a way that's just very emotional and satisfying as a third-person shooter survival game. And it's just very it's just beautiful to look at because the graphics are amazing in both games, and you're just so wrapped up with the story, with the characters, because you care about the characters, and you're sucked into this environment of this post-apocalyptic world where Joel and Ellie in the first game are kind of traveling cross-country, basically, in this post-apocalyptic world infested with these zombie-like creatures, this fungus disease that has made people look sort of like zombies, but not exactly, because they have fungus all over their bodies, and there's runners, there's clickers, there's bloaters, and it's very interesting kind of take on the zombie genre, even though they're not necessarily zombies. I mean, it's basically the same thing. They still eat people's brain. They still eat people, and they still hear you based on the sounds you make. So they are still technically zombies, but not necessarily. They're different, but yeah, same concept though. And I just really like the story of both games, and how in the second game it kind of takes what happens at the very end of the first game and formulates another story around what happened at the end of the first game, which is why it's called The Last of Us Part 2. Not The Last of Us 2, just The Last of Us Part 2, because it's a continuation of the story from the first game, and I really like that. And they are doing a TV show. They're making a Last of Us TV show for HBO, and Pedro Pascal, the actor from Game of Thrones and from The Mandalorian as Mando, he's going to be playing Joel. And for a while, I've always thought that Hugh Jackman would do a really good job performing Joel in a TV show or a movie, but I could see Pedro Pascal as Joel, and then another actor from Game of Thrones was cast to play Ellie, who I did at first, when I heard about that casting, I wasn't sure just mainly because she doesn't really look like Ellie from the games. But she's a good enough actress. I'm sure she could pull it off. And that's really all I had to say about the casting so far for the TV show that they're doing. And I'm excited for that, definitely. I'm excited to see that more post-apocalyptic kind of setting in a live-action format. Even though we've kind of seen that in other movies, like the Planet of the Apes movies specifically, they have a very similar post-apocalyptic setting in the newer films of the Planet of the Apes, and also in a little bit the Quiet Place movies too as well. So we have seen that same kind of post-apocalyptic setting in other movies. It would just be cool to see that, but also see the clickers, the bloaters, those creatures from the games, and seeing that translated into live action. So obviously, because it's an adaptation, it's going to be different, and it'll be interesting to see the differences, but also see the similarities. And I'm assuming that most of the similarities are going to be with the character dynamics with Joel and Ellie, how those characters will balance each other out, and how their relationship grows throughout the show. And it's just something that I'm definitely looking forward to. And overall, like I'm a really big fan of this franchise, even though I've never played any of the games. So yeah, that's my thoughts on The Last of Us, the kind of franchise as a whole, because right now there are 2 games and there's an upcoming TV show, and it's something that I really like. I love the post-apocalyptic genre in science fiction and horror. It's just one of the many subgenres of horror and science fiction that I've always latched on to, because it's such an interesting concept of what could possibly happen in real life. And we're kind of in that right now, in a way. I mean, not necessarily, but as last year, with everything that happened last year, and it's just, the idea of the whole post-apocalyptic kind of thing that could realistically happen, like, at some point in the future. So that's why I just really like that subgenre of science fiction and horror, and I'm really looking forward to that Last of Us TV show. And I'm not sure when that series will air, because it seems like the filming for that is gonna take a while. So yeah, it might not, optimistically, probably like early 2023, like spring 2023 maybe, as when I'm guessing the show will premiere. So it's still gonna be a couple more years until then. But yeah, overall, those are my thoughts on The Last of Us as a whole. I just really love these games, even though I've never played them. And there's a lot of other games too that came out for the PlayStation that I can't play because I don't have that console. And I want to get the PlayStation console, but it's very expensive. Very expensive. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Last of Us franchise as a whole. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.